Continuing Chapter 4, Ceremonial Life Outside the Fire Temple, from The Treasure of the Magi, a study of modern Zoroastrianism by James Hope Moulton. I said book 2, the Parsis, right? But even so, he says that these formula 3 or 4 times every day of his life, such endless repetition, if the words are understood, may tend to impress the creeds deeply up on really pious souls. As I said, that 16-part chant with only 3 names of God, you can really say that over and over and over and over and over again and not get bored, particularly if you do it in a sensual way. What effect they produce on the majority who do not understand them, or who become mechanical, as most of us would, in the perpetual repeating of the same words, may be left to be estimated from a general knowledge of human nature. While you kind of want to be mechanical, no matter how much you understand, you want to, you want it to be just smooth and all that, and then you can add more to your practice. But understanding them is important. But even more than understanding, as we've learned from the issue of intelligence, is that the devotion, the intention behind the act. The kusti must be tied with the face towards the light, sun or moon, or, failing both, a lamp. It is passed round the waist 3 times, and there are 2 knots, one in front and one in the back. Remember the Goetia circle snake thing? 3 times, and then a little bit extra, right? The symbolism attached to these had better be described in Dr. Modi's words. The knots are said to symbolize certain religious and moral thoughts. While forming the first half of the first knot in the front, a Zoroastrian must think that Ahura Mazda exists, and that he is one, is holy, is matchless. While forming the second half of the first knot, he must remember that the Zoroastrian religion is the word of God, and that he must have full faith in it. While forming the first half of the second knot in the back, he is to remember that Zoroaster is the prophet of God, and that he is the guide, and that he shows the proper path of worship. But not in the Christian sense of the Holy Ghost and Jesus literally sitting around informing in any moment. It's like the work has been done of the word. Proper Gnosticism kind of goes in that path that's been transmitted. This proper path of worship. While forming the second half of the second knot, he is to bear in mind that he has always to attain to good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. A knot symbolizes a resolution. So these knots of the second thread symbolize resolutions for the above said thoughts. The symbolism of knots is familiar among ourselves, as many as an unusable handkerchief will witness. It may be hoped that the Parsis find it more efficacious than we generally do. We have not yet exhausted the significance attached in Parsi devotional literature to this central rite of the religion. The Pahlavi treatise, Dadastan Idini, finds a triple symbolism in the kusti. First, to tie the cummerbund, or waistband, is a regular phrase for making ready a work. It is like the Old Testament idiom, girding up the loins. So the kusti symbolizes a man's obligation to stand with loins girt in readiness to serve God. You're not pretending that they don't exist. You're serving God with them. Secondly, a belt is a badge of office. When a man stands to receive orders from a superior, even so is the kusti a badge which reminds the wearer that he stands with all humiliation before God to receive his orders. Thirdly, the waist girdle divides the body in 2, separating the upper from the lower part. The thought is suggested that man must keep his lower self down, not let it master the higher and nobler self. Don't serve the senses, let the senses serve you, as we might hear in Vedic literature. There are other daily prayers, those connected with the 5 Goths, the divisions of the 24 hours. The Avesta contains prayers for each of them, but they are of no special interest. It has been already observed that merit is won by offering those of the Ushahina, from Usha, dawn, the watch that begins at midnight. We may take next the ceremonies connected with marriage. Some of the ritual is borrowed from India, but not so as to affect seriously its general character. There are solemn questions asked by the priests, as in our own marriage form, an answer to which bride and bridegroom declare their willingness. and there are witnesses to the ceremony. The joining of the right hands is supplemented by the passing of a string round the hand 7 times. A similar symbol of the marriage knot is the encircling of the chairs on which the couple sit with a piece of cloth, the ends of which are tied to the accompaniment of a Honover formula. The knot is further secured by passing round it 7 times the continuation of the string that binds the right hands of the pair. In their left hands are placed a few grains of rice, which are a given signal they throw at each other. And there is a keen competition as to which shall do it first. It is curious that we also have the throwing of rice, though rice is not an ingenious. Although it's not an indigenous product with us. A general clapping of hands follows from the assembled friends. The ceremony closes with the joint address of the 2 priests, containing admonitions as to conduct and prayers for blessing upon the couple. An interesting detail not yet named is the holding of a cloth curtain between them, which is withdrawn from when their hands have joined, because you don't touch before you're married. In the Irani form of a marriage, a picturesque feature is the search for the bride, an obvious reminiscence of primitive marriage by capture. Yeah, I think the long-term rape was actually a thing that made its way into forced marriage later, but I don't think that was there to start with. And the cultures that we have found that does happen, although the modern religions in the area were saying, no, none of that. We will kill you. We will kill your whole family. I mean, literally, you find that, but, well, the Bible has that, and it kind of, anyways. 7 vulnerable men with lighted candles go round the assembly, in which the presence of a great many children is de rigueur, inquiring who has scanned the bride. Needless to say, they take care to begin at the end farthest from where she sits. When discovered, she is asked whether she is willing, and the candles are then dashed out. All subsequent questions, asking and answering of which occupy quite half an hour, are taken in her name by a male friend who sits opposite the bridegroom on a dais with 2 priests and a best man who sits behind the bridegroom and holds a pomegranate over his head. When all is satisfactorily concluded, the bride joins in her husband on the dais to receive presents and congratulations. And I've witnessed a marriage, I've been to a marriage like this, and, well, actually, not this exact form, but I thought it was a gay, some of us thought, wait a second, they're allowing a gay marriage here? It wasn't a gay marriage, it was just, the essential ingredient to the woman speaks out, but also somebody speaks out on her behalf. Either she speaks or is silent. I mean, if she's not previously married and a virgin, she can be silent. But there's still at least 2 witnesses and somebody acting as a guardian saying, I've spoken to this woman away from the rest of you. She's not saying she's, to further guard the consent, because some people don't want to, have the embarrassment. And in my country, there's a lot of divorces not too long after a marriage because people are embarrassed to, stand them up at the altar or say no there. Needless to say, they take care to begin at the end. Okay, what? The 2 priests and the best man who sit behind the bridegroom and holds a pomegranate over his head. Pomegranate can symbolize dreams, but can also symbolize other things too. When all is satisfactorily concluded, the bride joins her husband on the dais to receive presents and congratulations. Okay. I think I shared that before, but I went off in a tangent. It will not be forgotten that the repudiation of celibacy as a religious ideal is complete. In former times, the Parsis were badly tainted with the Indian evil of child marriage. Well, by child marriage, they mean pre-adolescent marriage. Certainly in America at this point, child marriage had creeped its way back into America because there have been marriages under 12 in recent years. Nothing under 18 in most states ever makes the papers. And puberty isn't actually a requirement. In the Islamic world, to have full property rights and therefore control over the dower, you would have to, they throw out the age 15 for males and 13 for females as a minimum. But they say puberty, sanity, that sort of thing. But so child marriage, but then again, there's child marriage. This has now been escaped. This is child marriage, which is the marriage is set up, but whether the person's moved in or not, male or female, when they get older, they can decide whether or not to consummate the marriage. And most cultures that actually have them move in, that's a very explicit part. I saw a video of somewhere in Africa, some tribe. I mean, this was like 30 years ago or something where the film was from, or maybe even a little bit more, where this guy married somebody and everybody just assumed he was going to wait till she hit puberty and knew what was going on. He didn't know. He didn't know. I was complaining, why is she not pregnant? What's wrong? And it's like, so they asked him a few questions and he's like, it's obvious that she's not in the condition to get pregnant. Somebody gets up, walks around the circle, smacks him upside the head, sits back down, and they all explain to him, that you don't have sex with children, and, this is how you tell the difference between a girl and a woman, and that sort of stuff. But it was an ignorance. It wasn't like he knew. Economic conditions are, America has most of the is the hotbed of the world of child molestation. So criticizing the third world is utterly ridiculous, and the first world has more of a problem than the rest of the world. But I mean, even outside of America. But in the former times, the Parsis were badly tainted with the Indian evil. Economic conditions are indeed tending to postpone marriage rather late, and a serious reduction in birth rate and a serious increase in crime, by the way, is likely to accelerate the diminution of this. I'm not speaking right. The diminution of the community. The only marked difference between Parsi marriage law and that of our own is that a childless wife may urge her husband to take a second wife, both of them continuing to live with him. How far sexual vice prevails among the Parsi men, it is impossible to assert, and it's really impossible anyways. Now the Christians have tried to stop plural marriage and making sure all the women are married. They don't like that for some reason, so they've tried to force monogamy on certain societies, or at least removed benefits that come through the state through their approval of marriage. But there are many who deplore its rapid spread, but others think there is no evidence for any such generalization. The proud claim is made that among their women the profession of vice is unknown. It must be, of course, remembered that, in contrast to Hinduism with its sacred prostitutes and its obscene emblems on temples and cars, and to Islam with its legalization of concubinage, actually, no, that's not it either. You do have to, there's differences in marriage, so that's, certain rulers have field wives and all that stuff, but that's not, you can't rape your slaves, you can't hold some women, that's not acceptable. Parsi religion forbids all impurity with hardly less emphasis than Christianity itself. No, far more emphasis than Christianity itself. A Parsi who gives away to vice can never plead excuses from his religion in any stage of history. The ritual of the Vendidad presses rather seriously on women, both after childbirth and at ordinary periods of ceremonial impurity. Anthropology can of course explain very easily the tabus upon women at such times, found among the ancient Hebrews and other peoples, as well as among Parsis, while the Bible says to bring back the law, not do away with it, right? Till the 14th day after her child's birth, the mother is kept in a room set apart for her, and is not permitted to move or touch anything. Similar tabus have been observed at the other seasons of impurity. We are solemnly told that all this keeps at a distance the dangers of puerperal fever and other infectious disease. In that context, it is interesting to observe that all furniture of the lying-in room except the iron bedstead and cradle is given to people of the sweeper caste, who, on the showing, are either immune from infection or vile damnum if they take it. Pseudo-scientific justification of primitive tapas are very much the four in India just now. They form a convenient halfway house, at which we may assume will be the next stage, the abandonment of mere accretations upon religion, so as to give the Khazar of sanitation the things that properly belong to him, and to God the things that are God's. There are some European writers who have encouraged Parsis to adopt these very superfluous and ineffective apologies for survivals from antiquity. The day will come when the Parsis will realize that the Gathas need no apology beyond intelligible translation, and that things which need apology may safely be dropped by the inheritors of a more precious treasure. Well, okay, follow your example, Christian. In connection with childbirth, we may note here that the part played by the astrologer who was called in to cast the horoscope, remembering the ancient fame of the Magi in its pre-scientific lore. Well, there's science of different ages, thank you very much, not pre-science, but we may suppose that the prominent position of astrology to be a general survival of the past, but it might equally be well derived from the Indian environment. Like Roman augurs, astrologers, astrology goes beyond soothsaying and fortune telling and all that. Astrologers have learned the art of looking at another in the face without laughing. The horoscope is a document some 10 feet long and 9 inches wide, costs a rupee or two, and is kept with great care in a special box. It is consulted when lucky days have to be fixed, or when the owner is ill and the issue of his illness is to be predicted. It is to be feared that a majority of Parsis have a lingering belief in these foolish superstitions. Well, if people do that with the Bible, where's your scientific ground to say a difference? It is not necessary to give an account of the folklore which prevails, though with this diminishing force among the Parsi people, as our own parallels show. It has only a loose connexion with religion in modern days, and although in its sources it was very closely akin, education is kept in close contact with religion. This may only mean that the sacred texts are taught the child in language he does not understand, but as education is developed and the Parsis are pioneers, great efforts are made to give their children an intelligent knowledge of the meaning of their religion. In many Parsi schools in Bombay, which is naturally in advance of the Mofussil, a very I think they're insulting they're insulting the Muslims again. A very competent teacher, a graduate is set apart to go round and give religious instruction. The schools are for girls as well as for boys. While it would be too much to say that complete equality prevails between the sexes, well, there has to be difference for there to be true equality, but there has been a far closer approximation to it than in any other Eastern people, except they're not paying attention. It's the westernization that has brought in a lot of issues against the women. A brief reference will suffice for the special holy days of the Parsis. Conspicuous among them are the month Jashans, or feasts, which fall on the day of the month which bears the same name as the month, and are in honor of the Ameshaspan, or Yazad, to whom the month belongs. Sort of a Chinese astrology way of thinking. It's not the arrangement of the stars and the planets. It's particular months and particular times of the month, and they belong to particular beings. But we could say they all belong to God, and this is sort of a in-between stage of fully admitting polytheism and kind of, sort of like the Christian saint days and all that, and Halloween and Christmas and all that. The popular name of them is Farvardin Jashan, held on Farvardin, the 19th day of the first month, belonging to the Fravashis. On it, the Fravashis are honored in the grounds of the Towers of Silence. The Bahman Jasan may be named. It belongs to Vohu Mana, who is the guardian of the cattle. A special kindness to cattle marks the whole month. In addition to these monthly festivals, there are 6 Gahambars, or seasonal feasts, each lasting 5 days. In the Vestan times, they had special reference to the seasons, but through the neglect of the necessary intercalculation, They fell at present 6 months too soon. They have traditions of creation attached to them, which have often been compared with the book of creation given by the priestly writer in the book of Genesis. They are respectively heaven, water, earth, trees, animals, men. The last Gahambar, with its proper 5 days, the Gatha days, which follow the 360 days of the 12 months, is associated with the 5 other days immediately preceding. The 10 are Muktad, from Sanskrit Mukta Atman, released souls, during which the dead are commemorated. Now, the Western idea of soul doesn't exactly render into Atman, because Atman's less, the Buddha and the no self thing. It's not that there's no self, it's that your self isn't quite, The festival is far older than Zoroastrianism. Well, Zarathustra didn't want to found a religion. It's identical with the Greek Anthesteria, the Roman festival of the Manes, and with All Souls Days, which persists in many Christian countries. The dead return to the old homes, and provision is made for them, or so they believe.